I saw when I got off the plane to join the Selma March. We were not married then, but things changed. Our son, Otis, third grandchildren, Elijah, Michaela, and our wider family, our son in Cleveland, our 4 grandchildren, and 2 great grandchildren. How remarkable it is to witness this moment. And thank you, Chicago Bar, for setting this kind of precedent and being a model to the nation. I want to say a word about lessons we must learn and teach from generation to generation. I hold in my hand a poetic and moving statement from a loving daughter to her parents. And she closed it by saying, "Thank you for loving, accepting, understanding, and teaching me to be the best Lynda Abernathy that I can be. Eternally, my gratitude and love." I recommend that you read the entire writing. Historians have not yet done us justice, and journalists have not yet fully comprehended the global changes initiated by this list coming from a presidential leadership over a period of 4 fleeting years and a few days. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, Urban Mass Transportation, 1964, Federal Aid Highway Act, Criminal Justice Act, Food Stamp Act, Wilderness Act, National Arts Cultural Development Act, Manpower Act, Older Americans Act, Social Security Amendment, Voting Rights Act, 1965, Housing and Urban Development, Public Works and Economic Development, Department of Housing and Urban Development Act, National Foundation on the Arts and Humanities Act, Amendment of Federal Water Pollution Act, Amendment to the Immigration and Nationality Act, Higher Education Act, Child Nutrition Act, Child Protection Act of 1966, National School Lunch Act, 1968, Fair Housing Act. It is a challenge to every president, every Congress, every state, and every voter to learn from and carry on this kind of a legacy. If you have prisons for profit, every investor is a criminal. Mass incarceration and police brutality, poverty is profitable for some people. War and slavery, colonialism and ever-present racism, the new Jim Crow, injustice makes some people rich while keeping others poor. Injustice is not only profitable, but it pays a political structure to cover it. And it funds a theological perspective to give it an easy conscience. And injustice also hires and funds educators to teach it. Injustice is profitable. It builds industries and it even creates nations, empires. Injustice is profitable. And sometimes we unknowingly and sometimes intentionally enjoy the profits of injustice, believing that it is the thing that makes us happy and comfortable, and we turn our heads and our hearts away from suffering humanity. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne, yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above God's own. But there are some other things that Lowell said that we seldom quote. One, he said, it is prosperous to be just. That's the lesson we must teach. That you do not have to be unjust to be profitable. It's profitable to be just. And some years after Lowell said this, and I'll come back to something else he said in a moment. Years after he said this, Dr. William E. Du Bois wrote the autobiography, or rather the biography of John Brown. And in that biography, he advanced the notion that no one can successfully contradict that the cost of oppression is greater than the price of freedom. Or to put it another way, the cost of injustice is greater than the price of justice. And then he went on to say that injustice or oppression has an ascending cost, while justice has a descending cost. Therefore, we ought to invest in justice. rather than injustice. Even though you can get rich, you can build plantations, sometimes banks, for being unjust. And then the Lord said something else. You cannot unlock the door of tomorrow with yesterday's rusted keys. And we can add to that and say, you cannot unlock the doors of tomorrow with the rusted, bloody, exclusive keys of yesterday. Yeah. Our college president used to say to us that education is good for its own sake. It's better to be able to read and write than not to be able to read and write. Education is good for its own sake. It's better to be able to enjoy the arts, humanities, the poetry, all of the great things that education brings to us. But not only that, he said, education is good for self-defense. It will help you to keep evil, mean, low-down people off your back and off your neck. You cannot defend yourself properly if you don't know how to vote. You cannot defend yourself properly if you self-disenfranchise yourself. That's what happens when you have the vote and refuse to vote. That's self-enforced slavery. And you cannot defend yourself when other people take from you the right to vote. That's other imposed slavery. Some of you heard me tell this many times. When I was a child in Troup County, Georgia, 6 miles from the railroad track, living in a little 3-room house, we waited with joy one day when our father went out to vote. And he was gone all day long. When he returned home, he had walked at least 18 miles. His countenance was wearied. His spirit was wounded. We wanted him to tell us the story about casting his ballot. A ballot against, at that time, the governor of Georgia, whose name was Eugene Talmadge, the father of Herman Talmadge, who went all over the state using the N-word publicly without apology. Our father was going to vote against him. We asked him about the voting. He walked 6 miles to the Grange, and when he got there, they told him, "You're in the wrong place. Your voting place is in Mountville, Georgia." He walked 6 more miles. They said, "You're at the wrong place. Your voting place is at Rosemont School." He walked 6 more miles. When he got to the school, they said, "Boy, you're just a little late. Polls just closed." He came home sad. Before the next opportunity to vote in the gubernatorial election, our father was dead. Had been killed prematurely in an automobile accident, head on. another automobile that was driven by a drunken driver. Now, when 1965 came around, we could not dig up our father's bones and put flesh on them and make it possible for him to go and vote. There are some things that do irreparable harm. I think all the lawyers know that word. And even if you get damages, you can never remove the scars, nor cure completely the hurt that lasts forever. I think it was George Bernard Shaw, in his writing about Joan of Arc, gives to us an imaginary picture of Joan of Arc coming back after being executed, burned at the stake. And he paints a picture of Joan of Arc coming back, and she's being congratulated by those who burned her. Congratulated on becoming a saint. They're all standing around. Some of them are theologians, if not all of them. And when they sent out their congratulations, Joan of Arc says, "Can you unburn me? Can you unburn me?" I hear somebody speaking from Sanford, Florida, saying, "Can you unburn me?" Somebody from Ferguson, Missouri, saying, "Can you unburn me?" Somebody speaking from Baltimore, "Can you unburn me?" I hear a 12-year-old child from Cleveland saying, "Can you unburn me?" You can do irreparable damage that can never be completely cured through injustice. But you can do incalculable good by doing justice. That's why the prophet said, "What does the Lord require thee but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God?" Justice pays off eternally, but we must teach it from generation to generation. Finally, we must never be satisfied with all the victories and achievements and awards we might receive. Never become totally satisfied, because if you do, the forces of injustice will take over one more time. And when they take over, it's unpredictable as to how long they will last. That's why I like the prayer of Louis Untermeyer, who said, "God, though this life is but a race, although we know not what we use, although we grope with little faith, give us the heart to fight and lose. Ever insurgent let me be, make me more daring than devout. From sleek contentment, keep me free, and fill me with a buoyant doubt. Open my eyes to vision great, beauty and with wonder lit. But always let me see the dirt and all that's far and nigh in it. Open my ears to music. Let me thrill the spring's first flutes and drums, but never let me dare forget the bitter balance of the slums. From compromise and gains half done, keeping with stern and stubborn pride. And when at last, the fight is won, God, keep me still unsatisfied from generation